Okay.
What you just saw was the destruction of an Israeli David Sling battery, obliterated by an Iranian Fatah hypersonic missile. But here's the question. Why was the David Sling air defense system hidden among buildings right in the middle of the city? Stay till the end for that answer, as a bonus. But first, ask yourself, why is everyone nervous after the Iran-Israel war? The reason is simple, but terrifying. Iran made two major and unsettling decisions. Decisions that are unlike anything the world has seen before. In one sentence, you could say, Iran declared, all gloves are off. Two decisions that don't just reshape the Middle East, they redefine the entire world order. Sit tight, because in this video, we're revealing information about Iran's new plan that no one else dares to talk about. But remember, every single video we make puts us at risk of removal. So if you want the uncensored truth, follow us on Telegram, link in the description. And please, like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for your support. What's the difference between a short-range ballistic missile and an ICBM, an intercontinental ballistic missile? Size? Sure. But the real difference lies in how high they fly. Short and medium-range ballistic missiles stay below 300 kilometers in altitude, but ICBMs, they soar above 1,000 kilometers into the edge of space. At that altitude, there's almost no gravity and no atmosphere to slow them down, allowing them to travel at incredible speeds. That's the secret. The defining trait that separates an ICBM from a medium-range ballistic missile. But here's something most people miss. What other system behaves almost like an ICBM but is built for civilian use? Satellites. Not the satellites themselves, but the rockets that carry them into orbit. I saw an American YouTuber claim Iran would need decades to build an ICBM. To me, it's hilarious how these experts talk about missiles like they have every model parked in their garage, because Iran already had that capability back in 2009. They launched a satellite at 450 kilometers altitude. Iran said it was civilian, but now we know it was a spy satellite that's traveled millions of kilometers over 16 years. The only difference? An ICBM carries a re-entering warhead instead of a satellite. Back then, Iran was the 5th country on Earth with that level of power. But here's the crazy part. Iran's missiles were limited to 2,000 kilometers by choice. For 16 years, Iran chose not to make the world nervous. But now, that self-imposed limit, just like a speed limiter in a Mercedes, is off.
Intercontinental ballistic missiles for 8,000 kilometer range. What does that mean? They add another 3,000 kilometers, and they've got under their atomic guns, the New York City in target, Washington, Boston, Miami.
Iran suddenly tested a missile with a 5,000-kilometer range. The world was shocked. News outlets went wild. And then, Iran quietly added another 3,000 kilometers. Now they can target 8,000 kilometers. But even that isn't the end. Iran announced it will build missiles with 13,000-kilometer range, a direct response to the American strike on its nuclear site. And that is where America's worst nightmare begins. Iran can produce 300 ballistic missiles every month. Even for President Putin, that was shocking. That's why Russia wants Iranian missiles and drones. But if you think that's what makes Iran dangerous, you're wrong. Let's compare. Russia's Iskander missile versus Iran's Kheibar Shekan. The Iskander, 500 kilometers range, 500 kilograms warhead, 10 to 20 meters CEP accuracy. The Iranian version, 1,500 kilometers range, same 500 kilograms warhead, and an unbelievable 5 meters CEP. Speed? The Russian missile flies at Mach 7, the Iranian, Mach 10. And here's the part that stings. The Russian Iskander costs $3 million. The Kheibar Shekan, only $350,000, 10 times cheaper and arguably better. Now imagine Iran mass-producing hundreds of ICBMs, faster, cheaper, and deadlier than anyone expected. If Iran's missiles outperform Russian ones, then by logic, they outperform the West's. Remember, Iran was the second country to build and use a hypersonic missile, right after Russia. America? Still trying to get its first one ready. But even all this isn't the scariest part. When Iran finishes its 13,000-kilometer range missile, it means something profound. If America ever attacks Iran, especially its nuclear sites, under international law, Iran would have the right to strike American nuclear facilities in return. And when that happens, all the blame will fall on the American president who started it. Because even a small strike on an active nuclear site could force the evacuation of an entire city. You might think America can intercept them, right? Well, the record says otherwise. 3 THAAD systems, 4 Patriot systems, Israel's Arrow 2, Arrow 3, David's Sling, Iron Dome, even destroyers with SM-3 and SM-6 all failed to fully protect tiny Israel. So how could they protect the vast United States? Remember that first clip? The destroyed David's Sling system? Israel placed its air defense launchers among buildings, using civilians as human shields, because Iran had already destroyed multiple Arrow, Iron Dome, and David's Sling systems. Even hidden in Tel Aviv's skyline, Iran still found and destroyed them, with hypersonic precision. That's the level of capability we're talking about. And here's the dark truth. Many Iranian officials admit, if that war had lasted 30 days, Israel would have had no choice but to use nuclear weapons, destroying 1 or 2 Iranian cities. That's why Iran agreed to a ceasefire. But after that ceasefire, Iran sent a secret message to Israel and America. Next time, there will be no ceasefire. And what exactly was that message? That's what we'll discuss next. For nearly 20 years, Benjamin Netanyahu has warned the world that Iran is building nuclear weapons. The first time, he said Iran would get nukes in under 3 years. 10 years later, he said 3 months. But here we are, 20 years later, and Iran still has no nuclear weapons. Many call Netanyahu a liar. I say he's not just a liar, he's a master of deception, because he mixes truth with lies, and that makes his lies believable. The truth is simple. If Iran wanted nukes, it would have had them 2 decades ago. But Iran's supreme leader forbade it. Why? Because in Islam, anything that harms your body, soul, or innocent people is forbidden. Iran adopted that policy during the Iran-Iraq War, when America and the West armed Saddam Hussein with chemical weapons. Thousands of Iranians died from chemical attacks. Iranian generals begged their leader for permission to build their own chemical weapons, but he refused. Because he believed such weapons are evil. They lack precision, they kill the innocent, and they only encourage others to build more, making the world even more dangerous. Iran made a massive sacrifice to prevent the spread of weapons of mass destruction. So why does Netanyahu still accuse Iran? Here's the truth. Iran has 60% enriched uranium, while above 20% is only for weapons. But Iran's 60% isn't for war. It's for leverage. Iran uses it for negotiation and deterrence. Since the leader forbids nuclear weapons, Iran's message to the world is clear. We can build it if we want. Right now, Iran could assemble 4 nukes in 3 weeks if it decided to. But then came the turning point. Iran declared, if our nuclear sites are attacked, we will reconsider our nuclear policy. A brilliant deterrent move. And after 3 Iranian nuclear sites were attacked, generals announced, all limitations are off. That means Iran can now proceed to 90% enrichment. Even if they don't build a bomb, they'll have the capability to make 4 in just 3 days. They won't break their religious law, but being that close gives Iran absolute deterrence against Israel and the US. Remember, Iran agreed to a ceasefire in 12 days because they believed Israel would go nuclear. But if Iran had 90% enrichment, it could have built 4 nukes by day 3. And in that scenario, Israel might not exist today. Add to that hundreds of intercontinental ballistic missiles with 13,000 kilometers range, and Iran would have checkmated Israel and America. Libya gave up its nukes and was destroyed. North Korea built them, and no one dares to touch it. It's over for Israel and the US in the Middle East. A new era is rising. One led not by bullies, but by nations that value dignity and honor. So if you respect what we're doing on this channel, support us. It's free to like, share, and subscribe, but it means the world to us. And join our Telegram channel, link in the description, where we share the uncensored truth that can't be shown on YouTube. As always, it's an honor. This is Eastwind Brigade, where our voices unite, and together, we rise.